إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. So I begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making this opportunity for us to be able to gather together in a house from the houses of Allah to study our religion and to learn about our religion. And there is no better usage of our time than learning about our religion, learning the Quran, learning the Sunnah. This is the best use of our time. So I thank Allah that we have this opportunity, we have this chance to meet and to come together to study and to learn. And as you know, we are going to be doing a chapter from Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī. Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī, the famous book that everybody knows, the book of Hadith by al-Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhārī rahimahullah ta'ala. And the chapter that we are going to do from this book is Kitāb al-Fitan. Kitāb al-Fitan, the chapter regarding, or the book of trials and tribulations. Trials and tribulations. And we're going to be using the explanation of one of the great scholars who recently passed away, rahimahullah ta'ala, al-Shaykh Rabī ibn Hadi Umair al-Madkhali, rahimahullah ta'ala. And during the days when I was in Medina, when I was at the University of Medina, al-Shaykh Rabī actually used to live in Mecca in those days. He used to live in Mecca in those days. So I did not study books or other materials with the Shaykh directly, because we were in Medina and he was in Mecca. But we studied with the other scholars who were in Medina at that time from 2004 to 2010. So this particular book, it is, like we said, a chapter or a book from Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī. Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī, as you know, after the Quran, then the most authentic book that we have is Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī. And al-Imam al-Bukhārī said, every hadith that he put into Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhārī, he would pray 2 raka'ah. 2 raka'at, like istikhara. For every hadith he would put into this book. And he was very strict. He would check everything very carefully. The isnad, the ruwat, the chain of narration, and the narrators. And he would check everything carefully and double check it and triple check it. Al-Imam al-Bukhārī, you know, in those days, of course, they didn't have electricity. They would use candles and lanterns with the oil. He says sometimes he would wake up at night and he remembers some benefit from one of the hadith. some benefit or something, and he said he would wake up and turn on the candle and write down the benefit, then go to sleep. Then he would wake up again and remember some benefit, so he would turn on the candle again and write down the benefit. And maybe many times in the night he would wake up and remember those benefits and write them down. Al-Imam Ibn Kathir, he mentioned that about al-Imam al-Bukhari. So there is no doubt about the position and the status of al-Imam al-Bukhari, one of the great scholars of that time. Anybody know when al-Imam al-Bukhari was born? When did al-Imam al-Bukhari live? When was he alive? Anybody know?
He was born in...
No, when? What year? When was he born? When did he die? When was he alive? So we can understand where al-Imam al-Bukhari was in history. Anybody? 250 after the Hijrah, that's very close.
230 maybe?
230. So he was born in 194 Hijri. 194 Hijri. And he died in 256 Hijri. Born in 194 and died in 256. And there were many scholars in that time, around that time. Al-Imam Muslim, he was born in 204, just 10, 12 years after al-Imam al-Bukhari. In fact, al-Imam Muslim was born in the year 204, and which great scholar died in that same year? Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. If you look at the history, you see those big scholars in those early times. Because when we talk about the Salaf, and we have the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, خير الناس قرني أو القرن الذي بعثت فيهم ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. The messenger said, the best generation are the ones that I was sent in, the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. Then those who come after them, then those who come after them. 3 generations, the Salaf. When do those 3 generations finish? What year? 220 Hijri. 220 Hijri. That's what the scholars mention about the 3 generations. And it's easy to remember. We're going to talk about the companions, inshallah, because the last companion died in what year? The last companion who died. Anybody know what year he died in? So that is year number what? 110. 100, because Hijrah 10 years. So 110 Hijri was when the last companion died. So double that, 220 Hijri, when the Salaf, their generations finished. So al-Imam al-Bukhari was from those early times. He was from those early times where there were great scholars at that time. Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal at that time, Al-Imam Malik just before them, Al-Imam Shafi'i, And many of the scholars, they lived in that time. So al-Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, he has this section in Ṣaḥīḥ al-Bukhari, Kitāb al-Fitan, the book of trials and tribulations. And he says, Kitāb al-Fitan, باب ما جاء في قول الله تعالى واتقوا فتنة لا تصيبن الذين ظلموا منكم خاصة وما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يحذر من الفتن. So this is the chapter. He gives the ayah from the Quran telling us about the fitna when it comes. When fitna comes, it covers everybody. Even the ones who are not involved, the fitna covers the people. And how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to warn against fitna. So then he says, قال حدثنا علي بن عبد الله قال حدثنا بشر بن السري قال حدثنا نافع بن عمر عن ابن أبي مليكة قال قالت أسماء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أنا على حوضي أنتظر من يرد علي فيؤخذ بناس من دوني فأقول أمتي فيقال لا تدري مشوا على القهقرى. قال ابن أبي مليكة اللهم إنا نعوذ بك أن نرجع على أعقابنا أو نفتن. In this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that I am going to be at my hawd. That is like the pond, the lake, the water of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Day of Judgment. He said, I am going to be there, waiting for the people to come. But then some of the people are going to be taken away. So I will say, my ummah. But then it will be said, you do not know what they did. Some of them apostated. Some of them became kuffar after they were Muslim. We're going to explain these first 2 or 3 hadith together. The next one as well, it says, قال حدثنا موسى بن إسماعيل قال حدثنا أبو عوانة عن مغيرة عن أبي وائل قال قال عبد الله قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا فرطكم على الحوض ليرفعن إلي رجال منكم حتى إذا أهويت لأناولهم اختلجوا دوني فأقول أي ربي أصحابي يقول لا تدري ما أحدثوا بعدك. Similar narration, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that I will be the first one at that pond, at that lake. Then people from among you are going to be brought. And then when I try to give them the water, they will be taken away. And I will say, my Lord, my companions. But then it will be said, you do not know what they did after you. And also, قال حدثنا يحيى بن بكير قال حدثنا يعقوب بن عبد الرحمن عن أبي حازم قال سمعت سهل بن سعد يقول سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول أنا فرطكم على الحوض فمن ورده شرب منه ومن شرب منه لم يظمأ بعده أبدا. لا يرد علي أقوام أعرفهم ويعرفوني ثم يحال بيني وبينهم. Similar narration, that I will be the first at that pond, and then those who come and drink from it, they will never be thirsty again after that. And people are going to come, I know them and they know me, but then a barrier will be made between them and me, like a fence, a barrier will be made between them and me. And also the last one, قال أبو حازم فسمعني النعمان بن أبي عياش وأنا أحدثهم بهذا وهذا فقال هكذا سمعت سهلا فقلت نعم قال وأنا أشهد على أبي سعيد الخدري لسمعته يزيد فيه قال إنهم مني فيقال إنك لا تدري ما بدلوا بعدك فأقول سحقا سحقا لمن بدل بعدي. Similar thing where he mentions from Abu Sa'id al-Khudri that he said he heard Yazid mention in that, or it was added into that. Abu Sa'id added into that he said, they are from me. But it was said to the messenger, you don't know what they did after you, they changed. So then he says, take them away, the ones who changed. All of these hadith, they are talking about this pond or lake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is this hawd? What is the hawd of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What is this pond or this lake? Anybody know?
The lake is one of the rivers of Jannah. And if someone drinks it, he will never be thirsty again. And he will be full of life.
It is as big or it is as long as if you had walked or ran for 30 days long. And it is as sweet as honey, I think, and as clear as milk. And it has many cups to drink from, as many as the stars and as bright as them.
So the hawd of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this will be on the day of judgment, before paradise, on the day of judgment. There is going to be, it's called the hawd. In English, they sometimes say pond or lake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are some descriptions in the Sunnah of what it looks like. So it mentions in the Sunnah, in some hadith, that the water in this hawd, it will be whiter than milk, even more white than milk. And it will be sweeter than honey, even more sweet than honey. And it will be colder than ice. And it will smell more beautiful than the fragrance, the perfume that you wear. And there will be cups around the hawd. How many cups? It says in some hadith, more than the number of stars in the sky. More than the number of stars in the sky, cups, so you can drink from that hawd. And this hawd, whoever drinks from it, will never be thirsty again. If they drink from it, they will never be thirsty again. And what about the size of this hawd? How big is it? There are some hadith about that too. In one hadith it says that it would take you a month to get from one side to the other side. It would take you a month to get across. In some hadith it says it will take you 2 weeks to get across. So we know this is a huge lake. This is something very big. Takes days and days, weeks to get from one side to the other side of it. That will be the hawd, pond or lake of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Day of Judgment. Where will it be? On the Day of Judgment, but where? On the Day of Judgment, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, there is a sirat. What is a sirat? The bridge that people have to cross over it. That bridge which is thinner than hair, and it is sharper than a sword, and it has hooks, claws on it, and it is slippery. You cannot stand on it. That bridge, as-sirat, which is on top of the hellfire. Where is the hawd? Is it before as-sirat, before that bridge, or is it after that bridge? After? Before? Before? The fatwa here is before. After? After, before. There is one more answer too.
Before and after.
Before and after? Possible. Some scholars, they said it is after. Some scholars, they said it is before. And some scholars, they said it is so big, we know it is very big, that maybe it starts before the bridge, as-sirat, and when you get across the sirat, the hawd, it finishes on the other side. Maybe. We don't know. We don't have clear evidence, but the scholars, they gave these opinions. This is the hawd that is being talked about in these first 3 or 4 hadith. When the messenger says he will be at that hawd, and people are going to come, because we know on the Day of Judgment the believers will go and drink from that hawd. But some people, when they try to go, they are not going to be allowed. Some people will not be allowed to drink from the hawd. There are a few types of people, some of them we just mentioned. One of the types is the kuffar, but the ones who apostated, murtaddun, ahlul riddah, الذين ارتدوا عن الإسلام, the ones who were Muslim but then they left Islam, the apostates, the murtaddun, they will not be allowed to drink from that hawd. That is one. Who else? The mubtadi'ah. It is mentioned that Ahlul Bid'ah, They will not be allowed to drink, because in that second hadith it said, لا تدري ما أحدثوا بعدك. You do not know what they did after you. The innovation, the bid'ah, the misguidance of the bid'ah that they did after you. So scholars, they say, Ahlul bid'ah, the people of innovation, they will be stopped from drinking from this hawd. And that shows you the importance of sticking to the sunnah. As in the hadith of Aisha radiyallahu anha, من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد، أي مردود عليه، مردود على صاحبه، لا يقبل منه. That whoever innovates, من أحدث, whoever innovates, من أحدث في أمرنا، يعني في شريعتنا، في شرعنا, in this religion, whoever innovates, فهو رد، أي مردود عليه, then his actions are rejected. His actions will not be accepted. The one who makes innovation into our religion. And this issue, some people, they say, why do you Salafis always talking about bid'ah, ahlul bid'ah? Always you're talking about it, huh? That's what they say. You people all the time talking about bid'ah, ahlul bid'ah. Why don't you talk about being good to your neighbors and all these other good things? Why do you always talk about bid'ah? Let me give you one example why. In the Friday khutbah, the Jumu'ah khutbah, when everybody is here, you saw today how your mosque, it fills up, even on the street sometimes. In the Jumu'ah khutbah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every week in the Jumu'ah khutbah, used to warn against bid'ah. In the khutbah, every single week. How? Because what do you say at the beginning of the khutbah? كل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. That section at the beginning of the khutbah, that translates that every misguidance or every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the fire. I think when you do the khutbah, you do the Dutch translation of that part every week? No? The khutbah al-hajah? No, you do it so everybody listens to the beginning of the khutbah. All the innovation is misguidance. And every misguidance, the bid'ah, it is in the hellfire. The messenger used to do that in his khutbah every Jum'ah. Now if the people, they say to you, why do you talk about bid'ah and ahlul bid'ah all the time? We say, look at the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In the Jum'ah khutbah every week, he was warning against bid'ah. Because righteous actions, our worship, can only be accepted with two conditions. Sharta al-amal al-maqbool. The two conditions are al-ikhlas wal-mutaba'ah, al-ittibā'. Two things are needed for your worship to be accepted. Al-ikhlas, sincerity. Sincerity to Allah. That you do your worship purely and sincerely for Allah alone. Not for anyone else, not for showing off, not for the dunya, but for Allah alone. وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ حُنَفَاءَ. They were not commanded except to worship Allah. Hunafa, mukhlisin, sincere, and hunafa upon tawheed. Sincerity, al-ikhlas, is needed. We all know the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Your actions, they are judged according to your intention. That's why Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, maybe two people, they come to the mosque and they stand next to each other. And both of them, they pray perfect, excellent. Just like the Prophet said, صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي. Pray as you have seen me pray. Both of them pray 100%, everything perfect. But Ibn al-Qayyim said, one of them, he is in the sky. The other one is down in the ground. Why? They both came to the masjid, stood next to each other, and they prayed exactly the same. So why is one of them high and the other one low? What made the difference between them? Their niyyah. One of them praying with ikhlas, the other one without. So it is not about what your worship looks like. It is not about what it looks like. It is about the intention a person has in their heart. And you all know the hadith about the three people who are thrown into the hellfire at the start. Rajulun ustushhida, a man who was apparently martyred, killed in jihad. So on the day of judgment, it will be said to him, Allah will ask him, what did you do in this dunya? He will say, قَاتَلْتُ فِيكَ حَتَّى اسْتُشْهِدْتُ, that I fought for you, O Allah, until I was killed. Was he killed? Did he fight against the kuffar and he was killed? Yes. But they will say to him on the day of judgment, it will be said to him, كَذَبْتَ, you have lied, even though he did. But it will be said to him on يوم القيامة, كَذَبْتَ, you have lied. إِنَّمَا قَاتَلْتَ لِيُقَالْ جَرِيء, you only fought so that people would say, MashaAllah, how brave he is, how much courage that man has, how brave he is, he's a hero. That's what you wanted people to say about you. That's why you used to fight, not for the sake of Allah. So on the day of judgment, فَيُؤْمَرُ بِهِ فَيُسْحَبُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ حَتَّى أُلْقِيَ فِي النَّارِ. The command is given and he is dragged on his face and thrown into the fire, even though he was in jihad and he was killed in the hellfire, because his intention did not have ikhlas. Another one in the hadith, رَجُلٌ تَعَلَّمَ الْعِلْمَ وَعَلَّمَهُ وَقَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ, a person who learned knowledge. He studied and he learned knowledge, and he used to teach people knowledge, and he learned the Quran and he used to teach people the Quran. So on the day of judgment, it will be said to him, what did you do in the dunya with all of the blessings you were given? He will be shown all of the blessings. He will say, yes, Allah, I had all these blessings. Then what did you do with them? He will say, I studied and I learnt knowledge and I taught the people. I learned Quran and I taught the people. Did he used to? Yes, he did. But on the day of judgment, it is said to him, كَذَبْت. You have lied. Even though he did, he used to teach people Quran. But on the day of judgment, you have lied. Why? Because it will be said to him, you only used to teach people knowledge. لِيُقَالْ عَالِمٌ. So the people will say, he is a scholar. You wanted people to say, you are a scholar, mashallah. You wanted to show off. And you taught people the Quran. So people will say, mashallah, qari'. What a beautiful reciter he is. He reads the Quran, recites the Quran, so beautiful. That's what you wanted from people. That's the reason he used to teach people. So people will say, MashaAllah, scholar, MashaAllah, beautiful Quran reader, reciter. He was doing it to show off. So on the day of judgment, dragged on his face and thrown into the hellfire. A third man, رَجُلٌ وَسَّعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ, a man who Allah had given a lot of money to in this dunya. He had a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and he used to spend it in charity. So on the day of judgment, it will be said to him, what did you do with your blessings, the money that you had? He will say, مَا تَرَكْتُ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ تُحِبُّ أَنْ يُنْفَقَ فِيهَا إِلَّا أَنْفَقْتُ فِيهَا. He will say, I did not leave any pathway that you love charity to be given except that I gave charity. Charity to the mosque, donations to the mosque, donations to the school, donations to the poor people, charity to people who need food. I helped people and I gave my money. Everywhere I gave charity donation. Did he? He did. But on the day of judgment, كَذَبْت. You have lied. Because it will be said to him, you only used to give your money everywhere. So people would say, Jawad, that you are such a kind person. You are such a generous person. Such a good person, mashallah. He gives so much money for the mosque. And he gave so much money for the poor people, mashallah. You wanted people to praise you. So he was doing it not for Allah, but to show off. So on the day of judgment, dragged on his face, thrown into the fire. Look at these three people in this hadith. Did they do haram? Did they go and steal? Did they go and kill? Did they go and do zina, adultery, fornication, these things? They did actions which look like actions of worship, ibadah. But still, they are thrown in the fire. Because ibadah can only be accepted if it is done with ikhlas. As number one, ikhlas, sincerity to Allah. And the second thing, because sincerity, ikhlas alone is not enough. You must have the second one too, which is al-mutaba'ah. Ittiba' al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, following the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that is to follow the sunnah of the messenger. عليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين من بعدي تمسكوا بها وعضوا عليها بالنواجذ. The messenger said, you need to stick to my sunnah, obligation, my sunnah. عليكم بسنتي, and the sunnah of al-Khulafa al-Rashidin after the messenger. تمسكوا بها, hold on to it, to the sunnah. And then the messenger said, وَعَضُّوا عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ, bite onto it, onto the sunnah with your molar teeth. The molar teeth are the ones in the back. Why did the messenger give this example and say, bite onto the sunnah with the back teeth? Why not just bite with your front teeth? Why the back teeth?
You have more power?
Imagine a piece of string or something. If you bite it at the front, somebody can easily pull it out. But if you get that inside and bite it from the back, now somebody pulls, it will be difficult. They will have to pull to get it out. So the messenger said, bite onto the sunnah, not just from the front, from the back, strong. Hold on to the sunnah, strong. So the second one is following that sunnah. Like we said today earlier, تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ شَيْئَيْنِ مَا إِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِمَا لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدِي كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّتِي أَوْ كَمَا قَالَ. That I have left two things, as long as you stick to them, then you will not be misguided. The Quran and the Sunnah. In the Quran, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. Whatever the messenger has given you, then do it. وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. And what the messenger told you not to do, then don't do it. There is a narration where Imran ibn Hussein, he was teaching, giving a lesson, and he was saying some ayat from the Quran in the lesson, and he was saying some hadith. Somebody said to him, only do your lesson from the Quran ayat, forget the hadith. Because Quran, 100%. But hadith, maybe it is Ṣaḥīḥ, maybe it is ضعيف, weak. Some hadith are good, some hadith they are not. They are weak, they are not real hadith. So he said, forget the hadith. Just talk about Quran and ayat in your lecture. He said to him, Udnu. He said to him, come here. So when he came, فَدَنَا مِنْهُ, he said to him, أَرَأَيْتَ لَوْ وُكِلْتَ أَنْتَ وَأَصْحَابُكَ إِلَى الْقُرْآنِ فَقَطْ. Do you see, he said to him, think about this. If you only use the Quran and you don't use the hadith, then how would you know that Dhuhr prayer is 4 raka'at? And how would you know that Asr prayer is 4 raka'at? How would you know Maghrib is 3 raka'at and you read loud in the first 2 and quiet in the third one? How would you know these things if you only stick to the Quran? Does the Quran tell you those details? Does the Quran tell you Dhuhr is 4? Is it in the Quran Asr is 4? Is it in the Quran Maghrib is 3? Read loud in the first 2, quiet in the third. Is this in the Quran? It is in the hadith, in the sunnah. Then he said to him as well, think about this, he said, if you stick to the Quran only, then how will you know when you go to do Umrah that you have to go around the Kaaba sab'at ashwat, 7 times? Is it in the Quran? When you do Umrah, go 7 times around the Kaaba? Where is that? In the hadith, in the sunnah. So he told him, he said, listen, follow the Quran and the sunnah. Must be with the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Otherwise you will end up going astray. You will become misguided, because the sunnah explains the Quran. So we need ikhlas and we need al-mutaba'ah. Now imagine if a person has ikhlas. They say they are sincere to Allah in their worship, but they do not have the second one, following the sunnah. So then they will end up doing bid'ah. Think about these people now who celebrate the birthday of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you ask them, they will all say, we do this with ikhlas. We love the Prophet. We love the Prophet. We do this with ikhlas, the birthday of the Prophet. Huh? All of them, they will say that. But even if, let's imagine, they are claiming they are doing it with ikhlas, but they miss the second thing, following the sunnah, because this action of doing the birthday is not in the sunnah. So their action, even if they say they have ikhlas, it will not be accepted because they missed the sunnah. And the other way, if somebody is following the sunnah but they don't have ikhlas, then their action accepted or not accepted? Not accepted. Like those 3 people, they were following the sunnah, jihad and teaching knowledge and Quran and giving charity, sunnah, but they had no ikhlas. That's why it's important to remember, especially about the ikhlas, because some people, when they do bid'ah, they say, no, but look, we are doing it for Allah. We love Allah, we love the Messenger. You say to them, no. As the Salaf mentioned, كَم مِّن مُرِيدٍ لِلْخَيْرِ لَمْ يُصِبْهُ. Many people, they want goodness. Some people, masakeen, awam, juhal, they don't know, they never got any knowledge. They say, we're doing this because we love Allah. But many people, they say they are doing things because they love Allah, they love the Messenger, they're doing it with ikhlas. But just because you have ikhlas does not mean, or you claim to have ikhlas, does not mean that you will do the good actions. The good actions are with ikhlas and sunnah together. So, the people we were talking about, the people of bid'ah, the people who fall into innovation, they will be rejected and not allowed to drink from the pond, the hawd. There is one more type of people as well who will not be allowed to drink. So we had the apostates, the murtaddun, the ones who became kuffar after they were Muslims. Then we had the people of bid'ah, and also one more. Huh? Munafiqeen, okay, kuffar, but there's another type too. Huh? هو مثل أهل البدع. Another type they mentioned, the scholars. Huh? Mushrikeen, kuffar, but the scholars, they say the fusaq, the people who do a lot of sinning, sin. the al-Fusaq, the ones who do the sins, the sin. They disobey Allah, they disobey the Messenger, and they do haram things, public sinning, a lot of sinning. They disobey Allah a lot. The Fusaq, the Fasiq, that they will also be prohibited from drinking from the pond of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Here al-Shaykh Rabī' rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions that with these hadith that talk about fitna, these are about the hadith in the book of Fitan, and one of the things the Shaykh mentions is the dua that all of us are supposed to read at the end of the prayer. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min عذاب القبر ومن عذاب النار فتنة المحيا والممات من شر فتنة المسيح الدجال. That final part, the last thing in the prayer, that section, those four things are the biggest fitna. Those four things, هذه الأربع المذكورات في الحديث من أعظم الفتن التي أمرنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن نتعوذ منها وألزمنا بها. Those four, the trial of the grave, فتنة القبر, the trial of the hellfire, Jahannam, the trial of al-mahya wal-mamat, living and dying, life and death, and the trial of the Dajjal. Those four are from the biggest fitan. As for adhabul qabr, the punishment of the grave, we know from many hadith about the punishment of the grave. Because when, like Ibn al-Qayyim said, all of us, we are going to live in three places. All of us, we are going to live in three places. The first one is this dunya. All of us, we come to this dunya first. The second place we live in, the barzakh. When you die in the grave. And the third, al-akhirah, paradise, hell, the afterlife. From those, the second one, al-barzakh, we know there is adhabul qabr and na'imul qabr, the punishments of the grave and the blessings of the grave. Because when you die, then your judgment day has started. But the actual judgment day, it will come later. You will now be in the barzakh. When a person dies, they go to the barzakh. What does barzakh mean? Why is it called barzakh?
I think a place of rest or something. Or a place of like
Means a barrier.
A barrier. The barzakh is a barrier, like a wall or a fence. You have this side, in the middle, like a wall, a fence, a barrier. Because the barzakh is the barrier between what and what? Between the dunya and the akhirah. And in between is the barzakh. When you die, you wait in the barzakh until the day of judgment, and then everybody is resurrected. Everybody is then taken out of the ground for the day of judgment. So in the barzakh, there can be blessings or there can be punishments, depending on each person, whether they were good and righteous or they were bad. In some hadith it says that the good people, the good believers in the barzakh, a door opens and they can see paradise, and they can see where they are going to be in paradise. They can see their seat in paradise. And so they say to Allah, Ya Rabbi, aqim as-sa'ah. Oh my Lord, make the day of judgment happen now, because they want to go into that paradise. But the evil ones, a door is opened into hellfire, and all the heat of hellfire and the poison of hellfire, it comes and they can see where they are going to go. So they say, Ya Rabbi, la tuqim as-sa'a. Oh my Lord, don't make the day of judgment happen. Because they know, they can see that hellfire. And the evil ones, it mentions in the hadith, when they are put in the grave squashes on them and their ribs break, their skeleton breaks when the grave crushes them. But the good ones, it says in the hadith, when you bury them in that small hole, but when they are in the barzakh, they can see a big space as far as you can see. Their grave is made big and spacious, big space for them. So there is punishment and there is blessing in the grave depending on each person. There is a hadith one time, مر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بقبرين فقال إنهما ليعذبان وما يعذبان في كبير ألا وهو كبير أما أحدهما فكان يمشي بالنميمة وأما الآخر فكان لا يستنزه من البول. في رواية, the messenger, he walked past two graves and he said, these two are being punished. عذاب القبر. They are being punished in their grave. Not for something big, because those two people thought the sin that they were doing wasn't big, but it was big. And they are getting punished in their grave for it. And the messenger told us what those sins were. One of them,
he used to backbite people.
he used to?
Backbite people.
The backbiting, the namima. He used to spread the stories between people, tale carrying, as they say. Meaning, you go to one person, you hear some things, then you go to the next one and you say, do you know what I heard him saying? He was saying this and he was saying that, and he said this about you and that about you. So then this one gets angry with that one and problems happen there. And then you go to this person and to that person and you spread stories. These people were saying this about you, those people were saying that about you. And you spread these stories between people to cause problems. That's why Shaykh al-Fawzan, he mentioned, like in the narration it says, an-namam, the person who spreads these kinds of stories between people, will not smell the perfume, the fragrance of paradise. And Shaykh al-Fawzan, he mentioned, an-namam, a person who goes around telling people these stories, he said this and he said that, and I heard him talking about you and he was saying this. A person who does that to cause problems between people, as Shaykh al-Fawzan said, he makes more problems in 1 hour than a magician can make in 1 year. How many problems a magician can make in a year for people, a namam can go and do that like that. Because when the Nammam, he comes to you and says, brother, you know that other brother, he was telling me things about you, and he said this about you, and he said that about you. So then this brother goes and has a problem with that brother. That brother has a problem with this brother, and there is problems in the community. All of that, how long did it take this Nammam? Maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes, he gave him all these stories, and then all the corruption, the fasad in the community, it begins. So the punishment of the grave is real. It's in the Quran. It's in the Quran mentioned about the punishment of the grave regarding Pharaoh, Fir'aun of Musa alayhi salam. وَحَاقَ بِآلِ فِرْعَوْنَ سُوءُ الْعَذَابِ النار يعرضون عليها غدوا وعشيا ويوم تقوم الساعة أدخلوا آل فرعون أشد العذاب. That day, it says in the Quran, Pharaoh, from the time of Musa alayhi salam, Fir'aun, is being punished in the grave with a fire day and night. But then on the day of judgment, it will be said, now put them in a bigger punishment. What is the bigger punishment on the day of judgment? The hellfire, which means right now they are in a smaller punishment, which is the punishment of the grave. So it's in the Quran. So that is one of the things the Messenger told us to ask Allah to protect us from. That's one of the biggest fitnas, the punishment of the grave, the trial of the grave. That is what occurs. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr. Then also min adhab jahannam, and that is clear from the punishment of the hellfire. The punishment of the hellfire, that is severe. Because imagine Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, died as a kafir, and he is in the hellfire. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did a type of shafa'ah for him. He kind of did a type of dua asking Allah about Abu Talib. And so the punishment of Abu Talib in the hellfire is made small, the smallest punishment in the hellfire for Abu Talib. But Abu Talib, when he is being punished, when he is standing on the hot coal, standing on the fire, and it boils his blood and his brain boils, he will think this is the biggest punishment of the hellfire, even though it is the lightest, smallest punishment. As some of the, as it is mentioned, imagine now you get a matchstick or a lighter, small fire. It is so small you can get your fingers and finish it, huh? A matchstick or a lighter, use your fingers and the flame is gone. But if you put that flame on your face, can you keep it there? 2 seconds, 3 seconds, a few seconds, that flame will burn your face. And that is that tiny flame. You can finish it with your fingers, but it will burn you. So what about the hellfire? 70 times hotter than any fire on this earth. In one hadith it mentions the companions, they were sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they heard a noise. And so the Prophet told them that noise, it was a rock that was thrown into the hellfire 70 years ago. Now it got to the bottom. That's the size of it. So the Prophet told us to ask Allah to protect us from the hellfire. Also, min fitnatil mahya wal mamat, from the trials, the fitna of living and dying. Living, of course, we know this dunya is a trial. This whole dunya, it is a trial, it is a test. But even at the time of death, when you are dying, the test does not finish. Shaykh al-Fitan, he mentioned that even when a person is dying, maybe you are about to die in your last time, Shaitan will still come to that person then. And maybe, Shaykh al-Fitan, he mentioned, maybe the Shaitan comes to you when you're about to die. He comes to you maybe looking like your father. Looking like your father. And you are dying, and you think you are seeing your father. Maybe if you're old, maybe your father died 50 years ago. But still, when you're dying, maybe the Shaitan comes pretending to be your father. Shaykh al-Fitan, he mentioned this. And he says to you, my son, you need to become Christian. Islam was wrong. Christian, my son. Or he comes and he says, my son, Judaism, Jewish, Islam was wrong, my son. So now you think you are dying and you think you are seeing your father telling you, become Christian, become Jew, and maybe that person at the end, maybe he falls into that deception of the Shaitan. Right to the end, that fitna, it remains. That's why it says in the hadith, وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ حَتَّى مَا يَكُونُ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَهُ إِلَّا ذِرَاعٌ فَيَسْبِقُ عَلَيْهِ الْكِتَابِ فَيَعْمَلُ بِعَمَلِ أَهْلِ النَّارِ فَيَدْخُلَهَا. That maybe a person all his life is doing the good actions, worship and obedience, until he is almost in paradise. But then he ends up doing some evil and he ends up in the hellfire. Maybe at the end of his life, he ends up doing some evil, some shirk, something, and all of his life is then gone. That's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam always used to make dua, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Oh Allah, the one who changes the hearts of people, keep my heart strong on your religion. Keep my heart strong on Islam. Because Allah changes the hearts of the people. The hearts of the people are between the fingers of Ar-Rahman. So he would say, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Oh Allah, the one who changes the hearts of the people, keep my heart firm upon your religion. Because Shaitan is always making that effort to take the people away in many different ways. Many different ways the Shaitan tries to take a person away from the path of Allah. Like in the hadith, when the messenger, it says, خَطَّ لَنَا النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم خَطًّا مُسْتَقِيمًا وقال ثم خط عن يمينه خطوطا وعن شماله خطوطا. Then he drew lines to the right and lines to the left, but the line that he drew straight, he said هذا سبيل الله. Then the other ones ثم خط عن يمينه خطوطا وعن شماله خطوطا وقال على كل سبيل منها شيطان يدعو إليها. That you have the path to Allah, but then you have all these other paths. And all these other paths, there is a Shaitan at the end of all these other roads. trying to take you away from the straight one onto these bent ones, onto these wrong ones. And in many different ways. Even if the shaitan cannot make you do shirk, then he will make you do some other sin. If he cannot make you do a sin, still the shaitan does not give up. If he cannot make you do a sin, he will make you do worship. But which kind of worship? The one which is low compared to the one that is high. Maybe there is a worship with bigger reward. Shaitan tricks you and says, no, do this one instead. And so you do this other worship which is worship, but it is less. Shaitan, even that, if he can make you do less, at least he will do even that. So here the Prophet ﷺ told us to ask Allah to protect us from the fitna of life and death. And then at the end of it, the fitna of the Dajjal, the biggest fitna. All of the prophets and messengers, they used to warn their people against the Dajjal. The companions, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they said the messenger used to tell us about the Dajjal so much that we thought maybe the Dajjal is right there. The messenger used to tell us about the Dajjal so much we used to think maybe the Dajjal is here somewhere. So much the messenger used to warn them about the Dajjal. And you know the hadith of the companion who became Muslim afterwards, when they met the Dajjal. There is a hadith, and some of the scholars, they have mentioned it is authentic, when some of them, they were on a ship. This is a hadith, it is mentioned. They were on a ship and there was a big storm. And their ship got lost in the ocean. And they were lost in the ocean for a long time. Then one day they saw an island. So they got off their ship onto the small boat, and then they went to the island. When they got on to the island, they saw this like beast, this kind of beast. It had hair or fur, like the animals, everywhere on its body. They said we could not even see which side is the face of this animal and which side is the back of this animal. It was full of hair, fur. So they started talking to it. And just to make it short, he told them that you need to go to this old building. There is someone in there who wants to talk to you. So they went to that old building, and inside they saw, it says in the hadith, the biggest man they have ever seen. A huge man. Biggest man they have ever seen. Inside, with chains on him everywhere. On his neck, on his hands, on his legs, chains on him everywhere. And so they talked to him, and he started asking them about the Prophet. And they told him, yes, he is there, and he is calling people, and people are following him. And in the hadith, the Dajjal says, it is good for them if they follow him. It is good for them. It is good for them if they follow him. Dajjal in the hadith, he says it. So that afterwards, when they came back and told the Prophet about this, the scholars, they say that was the Dajjal they came across. It was the Dajjal, and there are descriptions mentioned in the hadith. Big man with curly hair all coming out of his head, like in the winter when you see the tree with no leaves on it, the branches are everywhere, his hair is like that. And a big man, and with the eye problem, as you know, the one-eyed Dajjal or Kafir or Kafara written on his forehead, the biggest fitna that there will be. And so we were told to ask Allah to protect us from the fitna of the Dajjal also. Those are the four things mentioned in that hadith, and these first few hadith, that's what they are talking about, the pond of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how people who fell into fitna, they fell into apostasy, they left Islam, or they fell into bid'ah and innovation, they fell into fisq, sinning, they fell into these other trials, that some of them are no longer allowed to drink from the pond of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that day. That is where we'll stop on for today's lecture. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we'll carry on with this for the next 2 days. Tomorrow we have 3 lectures. On Sunday we have 2 more. We'll carry on with all of this and talk about some more things, insha'Allah ta'ala, in the next lectures. So we'll stop on that for tonight. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.